Hello and welcome to this C Sharp login tutorial. In the previous videos, what we have done is we have so far been able to register users in the database. That is to create new users in the database through the website to a web page. What we're going to do today is to enable the users to log in now through the login page, which is normally supposed to be the first web page when the user is logging into any secure website. So what we'll do now is we'll create a new page and then we'll allow the user to enter his or her username and password, and then we'll be writing appropriate query to hook it up with the database to make sure that user exists and the password is correct. And if the password is correct, we'll um, show the next page to the user, and if the password is incorrect, we should be actually showing the correct message to the user that sorry, this password is, or the username does not exist in a database. So what we'll do is quickly right click your project and say add web form. So we'll be creating a new web form. Name is login, and we go to the design, and in the design we give the heading. It can be something like this: login or customer login, and you can style this by bold and justify it, and then also you can give it a heading, or give it a larger text if you like, so it's like 36 or 48 or whatever size you like. It's larger heading which I've placed over here, and then I'll create a new table, insert table, about 4 rows and 3 columns. um, I'll be creating over here. This is my first field is for username, second is for password, and then I'll be creating new fields over here. So you have to go to the toolbox. Control Alt X is the shortcut, and search for text over here. So this is a text box which I have to drag and drop to allow the user to enter his or her uh, username and password, and then there should be a button to submit the username and password, and also there should be a required field validator to make sure the user has entered something and not left blank. So I'll just reduce the size over here so I can fit in my required field validator in the third column. And then lastly, I will be having a hyperlink. So I will search for here a link or hyperlink, and I'll place this over here. This hyperlink should point to my registration page. So if the user is not logged in already, this hyperlink should point to the registration page. So let's give name to my first text box, which is supposed to be my something like username txt. Should tell me while I'm using this in the programming that it's a text box. And this is password txt again. Required field validator, what it does is it actually makes sure the username is not left blank. So I'll say over here user name should not be empty or blank, whatever you like. And the font color, let's choose something which is actually more alerting, something like red. And then this validator is validating a certain control, and the name of that control is, as we just gave it, username txt. Similarly, required field validator for the password is actually also password can not be or should not be blank or empty. The color over here should be also red if left blank, and the control to validate is the password txt. Now this is password txt error message. It's a required field validator, and it is validating that the password is field is not left blank. So one last thing is to um, give the mode of this text to be password. That's something which will be specifying that this is actually a password being entered, and I should be clicking on the password, and over here I should see the text modes, and I will change it to, yeah, here you are, I'll change it to password, this one. So when the user types the password, it is typed as asterisk. So this button has to be having, should be having a name, login, and this hyperlink should have a name, a text over here, register now. Okay, and the link it should be actually pointing to is your registration page. So you come to navigate to URL, click on this three button icon, and click your registration page, which is my sample registration page, and click OK. So if the user is not registered, it will be redirected to the registered now page. So that's it. I am finished up with my interface and validation. The next thing I need to do is to click on this login button and start doing the development. Now over here, the first thing I need to do is to import the SQL client, something very similar which I've done in the sample registration, using system.data.sql client, and then using system.configuration. Once this is ready, I should be following the steps as before, which is create SQL connection, and then open connection, and then create query for validating username and password, and then execute query, and then close connection. So these are broadly the 5 things that we need to be doing over here, and if you want, you can copy the code from the sample registration ASPX. It will be a little bit more handy, but for the sake of it, I can actually also write it down over here as long as I remember the string to connect. So the SQL connection will be created now. SQL connection, my connection is equal to new SQL connection, and then it will be configuration manager dot connection string. Inside square brackets, I should be writing in double quotes this ID, which is actually the same from the sample registration page, and in the end dot connection string. When I do that, I will get the connection to my database. And again, if you forgot, you can do the last video exercise, but I'll just take a few seconds to explain where this is coming from. In your Solution Explorer, if you open your admin page, which you actually created to display all the data from the database, to read all the data from the database, there was this data source which we have created from the new connection, and this is its name. Okay, so what I've done is I've copied this exactly, and I've pasted this in my login page. So this is the data source which I should be using in my class, in my program. So this is the data source. I've created the connection. Now I need to do I need to open the connection by writing this, and then I should be creating a query, which is always a string. String query is equal to, should be looking like something like this. When you run this query, it should be equivalent to, let me open the SQL Server Management Studio. This is my SQL Server. So I know, for example, let's say this username Murad and its password is ABCD. Okay, so what I would be doing now is I'll create a new query, and then I will copy the exact query to my code. That query is doing what? It is actually selecting from my table a username and password. If it matches, it should return something. It should return 1. If it does not match, then it should not return 1, or it should return 0. So let's create a new query, and I will say select count asterisk. This is for counting. How many? Select count asterisk from This is the database name, SQL customers dot uh, dbo dot users. So you don't need to write SQL customers dot dbo because this is the um, name of the context. You just need to write the users. The schema name is not necessary. SQL customers dot dbo when you're actually using this query or writing this query in the program. So anyway, I'll write now SQL customers dot dbo dot users select count abstract from this table name, where now if you look at the table name, it has which columns: username, email, password, country, and gender. So we should be looking at username and password uh, columns, where username is equal to Murad and password is equal to ABCD, which is the correct password. If you see this over here for the user Murad, and this should return me 1 because there is one uh, customer in the table with this name and this password. So if I write the wrong password, for example ABCD, instead of ABCD, which is the correct password, I'm writing BCD, it is giving me 0. So if this happens, then there is 0, so there is no, the username and password is not validated. There is no username with this password. The other thing is, if the username is invalid, so if I'm just writing underscore after the username, which is correct username, but I'm changing it to the wrong username, Murad underscore, and the password is correct, and I execute again, it will be giving me 0. So it has to be matching, both of them, username and password, they have to be matching. So this, something like this, actually I have to be creating over here, actually the exact query, except for the schema. So I will write this select count asterisk from users, which is the table name, where username is equal to, now this is a value which is coming from the text box, then I'll append in the string, which is username txt dot text dot trim. So trim is actually deleting the starting and ending blank spaces, plus string again, username is this, close the single quote, which is this single quote over here, this single quote, starting and ending. So I need to do this for username and password both. So where username is this and password is again single quote plus password txt dot text plus query again, single quote ends and the query ends. So now if this query runs and if this query returns me 1, I will know that actually the user is logged in successfully. So now there is one step missing, which is create command. Create command, and it will be SQL command. SQL command is equal to new SQL command, and this should take query and the connection, my connection. So when that happens, you can then execute the query, command dot execute scalar, and store the result int user exists. If the user exists, meaning if it's 1, then it means it exists. If it's not 1, meaning it is 0, then it does not exist. So now this execute scalar submits us the results in the form of string, and we need to convert this to integer. So there's a couple of ways. Before you have seen that you can convert it to through a method which is called convert.toInt32. This is how you can convert. The another method to do this also is int.parse. Both methods are valid actually, and inside you give it this complete method. So this will be converting the string to integer. Int user exists. Close the connection. My connection dot close, and now you will check if user exists is greater than 1, sorry, greater than 0, meaning if it's 1, then you write over here response dot write login successful, else response dot write invalid username and or password. Now what this really should be doing upon a successful login is it should redirect to a new page, which should be the home page. And if it's not successful, then just write over here the login has been unsuccessful. So, but for the sake of simplicity, we are just writing over there login successful. Later on, we can and we will do this to redirect this to a new page. So just let's run this page now, which is the login page we just created. Right click the login and do view in browser. Let it open up now. So it started. Let's say Murad is the username and the password is ABCD, and I say login. It should say me login successful. Good. When I write wrong password, let's say something else, and I try logging in, it says invalid username and or password, which is now good. Our login is working. And if I am not logged in already, I can go to register now and register from here. So this flow is complete. The next thing we want to do is to create a successful and unsuccessful page, which is basically a home page. So whenever a user has successfully logged in, he should log into his or see his or her actually new page over here. So I need to click on my project, add the form, and this should be or customer home. So this is supposed to be customer's home page, and I'll just write over here congratulations for successful login. This is your home page, and I'll save this. So customer home.aspx, I'll go back to my login aspx.cs and I'll modify this, and I say if the user is greater than 0, meaning the user and password exists in the database, then response dot redirect, and I'll write over here the name of the page which I just created, which is customer home.aspx. I'll save this and then I'll run this login.aspx again. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll write over here the correct username and password, and then when I attempt to log in, it should give me congratulations for successful login, so which is a new page basically, and it's supposed to be a home page. If the user does not successfully log in, meaning the username and password is wrong, and then I try entering the system does not allow me to go inside. So thank you very much for watching. In the next video, we will look at a little bit more detail on how to manipulate users' data. Thanks a lot.